know that feeling when you've had a brutal day at work and you're scrolling through your phone on the way home and suddenly you're like, I deserve this? Maybe it's a $7 coffee with all the extras. Maybe it's some random thing on Amazon you don't really need. Maybe it's Uber Eats because cooking feels impossible right now. Here's the thing nobody talks about. That innocent little treat yourself moment, it's actually rewiring your brain to need spending for happiness. And once that pattern locks in, you're not just broke. You're trapped in a cycle where money becomes the only way you know how to feel better. Today, we're breaking down exactly how this happens, why it's so powerful, and how to escape it without making your life miserable. So let's start with what's actually happening in your brain when you treat yourself. You have a stressful day, your brain releases cortisol, that's your stress hormone. You're tired, frustrated, maybe a little angry. Your brain is desperately looking for relief, for anything that'll make you feel better fast. Then you buy something. Could be small, doesn't matter. The moment you click buy now or swipe your card, your brain floods with dopamine. That's your reward chemical. And for a few minutes or maybe a few hours, you genuinely feel better. The stress fades, you feel like you did something nice for yourself. Here's where it gets dangerous. Your brain just made a connection. Stress equals spending. Bad day equals purchase. Uncomfortable emotion equals shopping. It's the exact same pattern that creates any habit, except this one costs you money every single time you do it. And the worst part, it works. At least, it works short term. That dopamine hit is real. The relief is real. So your brain says, okay, remember this. When we feel bad, we spend money, and then we feel good. That's the reward spending loop. And once it's established, it starts running automatically in the background of your life. Now, you might be thinking, come on, it's just a coffee, or it's only 20 bucks. And you're right. One time, it is just a coffee. But here's what actually happens over time. Let's say you have 3 rough days a week. That's pretty normal, right? Maybe you treat yourself to a $15 purchase each time. That's $45 a week. Doesn't sound insane, but that's $2,340 a year on just feeling better. But it gets worse because the loop doesn't stay the same size. Your brain builds tolerance to dopamine, just like with anything else. That $15 purchase that used to make you feel amazing? 6 months later, it barely registers. So you upgrade. Now it's $25, then $40. Then you're buying things you definitely can't afford because your brain needs a bigger hit to feel the same relief. I've seen people stuck in this pattern who make good money, like legitimately good money, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck because every emotion triggers a purchase. Bad day? Spend. Good day? Celebrate by spending. Bored? Spend. Anxious? Spend. Their brain has literally forgotten how to process feelings without opening their wallet. And the cruel irony is that the spending creates more stress. Because now you're broke, which is stressful, which makes you want to spend more to feel better. It's a trap that feeds itself. The reward spending loop doesn't always look obvious. Sometimes it disguises itself as something responsible or justified. Like, I worked hard this week, so I'm getting the premium version. Or, I've been so good with money lately, I can splurge a little. Or, my personal favorite, this is an investment in myself. About something that is definitely not an investment. It shows up in subscriptions you forgot about because you signed up after a bad day and never canceled. It shows up in your DoorDash history at 11 p.m. when you're exhausted. It shows up in the random stuff scattered around your apartment that you bought, used once, and forgot existed. Here's a quick test. Look at your bank statement from the last month. Not the big stuff. Ignore rent and bills. Look at everything under $50. How many of those purchases happened when you were stressed, tired, bored, or emotional? If it's more than half, you're in the loop. And the thing is, we've been trained into this. Every ad you see is basically saying, feeling bad? Buy this. Feeling good? Buy this. Feeling anything? Buy this. We're surrounded by messages that tell us spending equals happiness, so of course our brains make that connection.
All right, so how do you actually get out of this without just white-knuckling it and making yourself miserable? First, you need to interrupt the automatic pattern. The loop works because it's unconscious. You feel bad, you spend. You don't even think about it. So you've got to create a pause. Here's what works. When you get the urge to buy something after a rough day, set a timer for 20 minutes. Don't deny yourself the purchase, just delay it. During those 20 minutes, do literally anything else. Go for a walk, call someone, do 10 push-ups, watch a dumb video. Doesn't matter what. Most of the time, the urge will fade. Not always, but most of the time. And when it doesn't, fine, make the purchase. But you just broke the automatic response. Your brain now knows there's space between the feeling and the spending. Second, you need to build alternative dopamine sources that don't cost money. This sounds lame, but it's essential. Your brain needs something else to reach for when it wants relief. Exercise is the obvious one, and yeah, it actually works, but it doesn't have to be intense. A 10-minute walk does something. So does cleaning one small area, which sounds ridiculous until you try it and realize accomplishing something tiny gives you a little dopamine bump. Other things that work are calling someone you actually like talking to, learning something new on YouTube, working on a project you care about, even just sitting outside for a few minutes. The point is to give your brain proof that you can feel better without spending. Third, and this is important, you can't just remove the treats entirely. That's why most stop impulse spending advice fails. If you just deny yourself everything, your brain rebels and you end up binge spending later. Instead, schedule your treats. Budget for them. Like literally put $40 treat money in your budget every week, and when you use it guilt-free. The key difference is you're choosing it consciously, not reacting to emotions. You're taking back control. And finally, get honest about what's actually stressing you out. Because here's the real truth. Reward spending is usually a band-aid over something bigger. Maybe you hate your job. Maybe you're lonely. Maybe you're burnt out and don't know how to rest. The spending isn't the root problem. It's a symptom. And until you address what's actually wrong, you'll keep reaching for your credit card every time life gets hard.
Here's what happens when you actually interrupt this cycle. First, you'll have more money, obviously. But it's not just the amount, it's that the money stops disappearing mysteriously. You'll actually see it accumulate instead of evaporating every week. But more importantly, your relationship with your emotions changes. You start processing stress and frustration and boredom like a normal human instead of medicating them with purchases. You build actual resilience instead of just buying temporary relief. You'll also start noticing how much of your identity was wrapped up in spending. Like, if you can't buy something when you're upset, who are you? What do you do? And figuring that out, that's when real growth happens. Your brain literally rewires. The connection between bad feeling and must spend weakens. Eventually, it fades. And you find yourself having a terrible day, getting through it, and realizing hours later that you didn't even think about buying anything. That moment, when you realize the loop is broken, that's freedom. Look, treating yourself isn't bad. Buying things you enjoy isn't bad. The problem is when spending becomes your only emotional regulation tool. If you take one thing from this video, make it this. Put a 20-minute gap between the feeling and the purchase. Just that one change will show you how much of your spending is actually the loop running on autopilot. Your brain can learn new patterns. It can find happiness without your credit card, but you have to give it the chance. If this clicked for you, leave a comment telling me your biggest treat-yourself weakness. I'm curious what everyone's struggle is. And if you're ready to actually fix your relationship with money, hit subscribe because we're going deeper on this stuff every week. You're not broken. You're just stuck in a pattern, and patterns can be changed. See you in the next one.